Okay, so some of the workshop goals. The goal of today's presentation really is to present information to the community to give everyone a better understanding of specifically EV basics, which includes charging, resources, and then statewide EV plans and goals. So a few of these goals that we're going to work on is understanding the different types of electric vehicle terms. There are a lot of terms out there that you may see when you are one purchasing an EV or getting an EV charger installed or using one. So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to review national EV infrastructure plans. That will be my counterpart, Amanda from MDOT. She'll be talking about that. Learn about EV chargers, the costs associated with them in terms of installing and using them. And then mapping routes out specifically when you want to go to a certain place and you're trying to find a charger. Identify ways you can save money and apply for these different types of rebates, may it be at the federal, state, local, or utility level. And then also discuss some free technical one-on-one advising sessions that we can provide to you. Okay, so before we get started with the content of the webinar, I want to get a better understanding of my audience. So I'm going to ask you to utilize the chat right now. Where is the nearest EV charger to you right now? So you can go ahead and use the chat. We may just look at those answers and kind of see, where you guys are and what you're seeing in your area. And yeah, just like my colleague Diego said, if unsure, just you can write that. We'll help you find that if you need it. So we'll just give a few minutes. And while we have you thinking about the closest EV charger to you, let's also kind of gauge the interest. Who owns an EV right now? If you do, you can use the chat and just say yes. You can say no or interested sometime soon. And then to also kind of gauge interest, if you do have an EV, what type of EV do you have? Tesla Model 3, there we go. Just kind of see where interest lies, the type of vehicle you have. Seeing a lot of good answers in the chat. Thank you. That's awesome to hear. Seeing Tesla, Ion 5. That's great. Awesome. Thank you, Deb, for sharing. Thank you, Jose. Nissan Leaf, very good. That's a very popular one. Awesome. Great. Thank you all for using the chat. So let's see. And also, just to kind of put it out there, does anyone else use something that's powered by electricity, like an e-bike or an electric scooter? You can also put that in the chat as well. I personally own an electric bike and love using it around the city-owned trails. It's very convenient and makes things just a little bit quicker and stuff when you're trying to go for those long distances. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to transition into talking about what charging your EV actually looks like. Okay, so these are some of the different terms I mentioned that we would be discussing. So these are the ones that you're going to see commonly used when, excuse me, referring to EVs and EV chargers. So if you see an A, that would mean amp. AC is alternating current. A BEV, that's mostly the battery electric vehicle. CCS, we're going to talk about this a little bit later when trying to find where those chargers are when you're looking at routes. That means combined charging system. DC is the direct current. DCFC, those are the DC fast chargers, the level 3 mostly. EV is electric vehicle. EVSC is the electric vehicle supply equipment, i.e. your EV charger. LD is light duty and V is volt. So let's now go into the basics about electric drive vehicles. Okay, so there are 3 types of EVs. You're going to mostly see hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and then all electric. For the purposes of this webinar, I will mainly be talking about plug-in hybrids and all electric vehicles, as you can see denoted by the red little bold lines around it. So first, let's go to talk about hybrids. So this is powered by an engine and electric motor. You only fuel it with gas, so as you drive, it charges the electric motor, and then it makes driving a little bit more efficient, and it adds about 10 to 50 miles added of fuel economy. So now we'll get into the plug-in hybrids. These are powered by gasoline and electricity, um, and it has a heavier reliance on that electricity. So you can charge and fill up the gas tank. The electric motor is used until the battery is dead, and then the gasoline engine will take over. So it uses both of those motors together. Um, and then what's really nice for the plug-in is that you can use it for short distances and powered just only by the electricity component of the vehicle. So it can easily fit a daily commute while also having an option to use for summer road trips. An example of a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle would be a Chevy Volt. And then also an example of the hybrid vehicle, as just mentioned, would be a Toyota Prius. So now we'll get into the battery electric vehicle, the BEV. So this is powered entirely by electricity. You probably will not see this at gas stations unless you obviously have those charging stations. You may have seen the Tesla chargers, the ChargePoint, the EVgo. You'll see those mainly at gas stations and other places as well. So this uses the EVSE to charge, like I just mentioned, and it has about 80 to 500 miles electric range. That really depends on the type of vehicle you have. And then examples of this type of vehicle would be, some people have Teslas. I saw some Hyundai Ioniq 5 and 6, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID4, and then the Ford F50 Lightning. So there's just a few examples that you're going to see on the road and stuff, and if you look to purchase them as well. So one thing that all of these cars have in common is that regenerative braking. The regenerative braking is such a useful thing for electric vehicles because every time you brake, the battery gets charged every time. So that kind of makes it more advantageous to utilize that electric vehicle. So usually when talking to someone about EVs, they're referring to the all-electric vehicles. So for the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to use EVs as that main term. Okay, so this is kind of discussing the specific kinds of charging infrastructure that you're going to see, and kind of all the aspects in terms of the ports, the connectors, and all the different parts of it. So electric vehicle supply equipment, that is all the equipment that is needed to deliver that electrical energy from that electricity source to the battery itself. So some terms, the EV charging port, that provides the power to charge the only one vehicle at a time, even though it may have multiple connectors. So an example of this is when you're at maybe a gas station and you see a Tesla. You see that they have multiple, per se, chargers, but only it's a way that you have to do it very uniquely. You have to park every other one so that every Tesla can utilize all that energy and not have it kind of delayed because there are multiple Teslas on each charger. And then connector, that's what's plugged into the vehicle to actually charge it. You can see that, like I just said, there are multiple connectors that can be available. So sorry. Multiple connectors can be available on one EV charging port, but only one vehicle can charge at a time. So they do that to kind of make sure that each vehicle has the ability to maximize the amount of electricity given to them. So a few types of connectors, they're also called plugs. Kind of get familiar with what these look like. If you have an EV, you may be very familiar with this, but if you're looking to buy an EV, this is good for you to know. So the one on the left is level 2. The one in the middle is showing the 2 DC fast charger ones. And then on the far right, you see the DC and level 2. That's where it has both that component to do the DC and level 2. And then that picture just on the right is just kind of showing the few components of the vehicle and then the charger that brings that electricity to the actual EV itself. So now I'm going to get into the 3 types of levels of chargers that you can use. There's level 1, 2, and 3. This slide is talking about level 1. You're mostly going to use this to charge your EV overnight. So the outlet type you're going to see is it's a regular GFI outlet that's available most likely already in your home, which is very convenient. So if you're looking to charge overnight, this would be a good source for you. In terms of charge cost, The example we're going to use for level 1 and 2 is going to be the Nissan Leaf. Usually it's around 15 cents per kilowatt hour, so you're looking at about $9. The speed of charge is a little bit slower than level 2 and 3, but that's why it's optimal for overnight. It does about 2 to 5 miles of range per hour of charging. You're most likely going to see this in residential settings, but it also can be seen on the street, multi-unit dwellings, single-family residential units, garages, and driveways. And this is usually 120 volt that you're going to see. So, like I said, normal type of outlet you can see in your home. Okay, so now level 2, this is the one that you mainly will see, and most people are utilizing, which is great. This one does require permitting and licensed contractors to have it actually installed. So once again, the outlet type, you'll need that electrician to have it hardwired or mounted to your garage or driveway or wherever you might like to have that placed. Charge cost, once again, we're looking at the Nissan Leaf. It's about $9 per session. Speed of charge, that's about a little bit quicker than level 1, which is great. About 10 to 20 miles of range per hour of charge. So you're looking at about 3 to 8 hours for it to be fully charged or close to it. This one, the previous one was specifically really only at residential, but this can be residential and commercial, which is really great. And then you'll also see it on the street, multi-unit dwellings, single-family residential, garages and driveways. And this one is 220 volt. So once again, quicker volts, higher volts, it's gonna get you charged much quicker. Okay, and so now we're going to talk about level 3. This one, once again, requires permitting and licensed contractors for installation. It's a little bit more for in terms of the charging cost, 23 to 35 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's about $15 to $25 per session. This one might be one if you're on a trip or you're on, you need something quick and fast to kind of get your battery up to speed. So you might use this one for that. The install cost is about 80K to 120K plus, and that depends on how many you want installed and the site as well where you choose. In terms of speed of charge, this one is obviously the fastest one. It's got 80 to 200 miles of range per hour. So you're looking at about 30 minutes to an hour, which is great for that quick charge you're looking for. And this one is primarily only at commercial sites. So parking lots, garages, public places, transportation hubs, hotels, you see them a lot there nowadays. Retail workplaces, office parks, and you're going to be seeing a lot of fleets that utilize this as well. And this one is the 208 or 480 volts, three-phase AC. There we go, that term we talked about earlier. Electrical source coming from that public station. Okay, so just to kind of get a few examples of using two different types of vehicles, how long does it about take to charge that vehicle? So I have the Ford 150 Lightning here on the left, and then the Chrysler Pacifica P on the right. So this just specifically is showing, the charger level you have on the bottom, and then about how long it'll take to charge in hours. So just kind of giving a visual example of what that might look like in case you were curious. Okay, so now that we've talked about the terminology of EVs and EV chargers and the three kinds of chargers, let's look at determining EV and EVC costs. So there are two sides of this. You have the hardware costs and then the software and networking costs. So the hardware, that's your physical charger that you're going to purchase, the ports, the different panels, transformers, including wiring or conduit. A lot of homes or commercial places will need an upgraded panel or transformer to take on this additional energy and electricity that's going to be utilized by those chargers. We recommend looking for several bids from different installers in different places as well. And then there are many different things, that will determine the cost, the connector type, and the speed. So that's important as well. And then on the software networking side as well, this is important because it provides data and analytics to, this is a specific example, to fleet managers to inform charging decisions. A lot of these chargers can have this software built in, um, or it can be purchased from third-party vendors, and this really enables that cost-effective charging management. So you can see, is this charger very busy? How much you want to charge? Is this one not being utilized? So you have those networks to do that. So those networks can be closed or open. And then it also just depends on the provider that you choose as well. So just kind of talking about those costs is very important to bring into the discussion as well. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it off to my counterpart, Amanda at Maryland Department of the Maryland Department of Transportation, about NEVI and all things they do with MDOT. So I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Natalie, and good morning, everyone. As Natalie said, Amanda Hinn. I manage the NEVI program for MDOT, or the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, and I'll go into some more detail about what that program is later on in my presentation. But to get us started for my segment, now that Natalie has provided some information about EV charging, I just want to provide some additional context about why Maryland is advancing vehicle electrification and what the Maryland Department of Transportation is doing to support it. Next slide, please. Thank you. So to begin, it's important to understand the linkage between greenhouse gas mitigation and electric vehicles. Like Natalie alluded to earlier, Maryland is particularly focused on increasing battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles in the state. As you may already be aware, the Maryland Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022 established ambitious goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 60% from 2006 levels by 2031, and ultimately achieve net zero emissions by 2045. So the transportation sector accounts for about 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions in Maryland, which is why electrifying our transportation sector is a great opportunity to help us meet our climate goals and to improve air quality and reduce the impacts of climate change in our local communities here in Maryland. In addition to the Climate Solutions Now Act, another significant state policy we have driving electrification is Advanced Clean Cars 2. So this program, which builds on Maryland's existing Clean Cars program, begins with model year 2027 and requires that 100% of new cars, light-duty trucks, and sport utility vehicles sold in Maryland are zero-emission vehicles by 2035. So this level of EV adoption is significant and will also require the installation of EV charging infrastructure to ensure that with the addition of all these new vehicles that we have the charging infrastructure to support them. So this brings us to the critical funding mechanisms established under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA, which is also commonly referred to as the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Maryland specifics in a later slide, but at a high level, the federal government has established a pot of $7 billion for the installation of publicly available, reliable, and convenient EV charging infrastructure, and that pot is broken into two buckets. So first is the NEVI program, or the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, and this is about $5 billion of funding allocated to each state based on a formula. So this funding will be first used to install publicly accessible infrastructure along our electric vehicle alternative fuel corridors, and then in our communities. The second bucket is the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program. That's also known as the CFI program for short. And this is a competitive grant program created to similarly deploy publicly accessible EV charging, but also alternative fueling infrastructure in the places where people live and work, so in urban and rural areas, in addition to our alternative fuel corridors, which I will talk a little bit more about later as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you can see from this graphic, this is sort of projecting the growth of light-duty electric vehicles in Maryland as a result of Advanced Clean Cars 2. And as you can see, by 2031, electric vehicles will represent over a quarter of our light-duty fleet. The figure in red at the top is not the most up-to-date. So by the end of July, we had 112,986 EV registered in our state, which is a good milestone, and we also have a long way to go. So to monitor the growth of these registered electric vehicles and also uh, the supporting public charging infrastructure available in our state, MDOT offers several tools available to the public. So this dashboard that I took a screenshot of displayed on the screen is one of these tools. This information is updated monthly and breaks down the number of charging ports by county and power level, as well as other information. And you can click around on it. But as you can see, the distribution of charging infrastructure throughout the state. Our goal at MDOT is to increase these figures overall, and also ensure that the spread of publicly available chargers is more equitable across our many counties and communities in our states. And I will provide a link to this dashboard at the end of our presentation. So MDOT has several areas of responsibility to advance and support vehicle electrification in Maryland. Our primary focus at the moment is to ensure that our NEVI program gets off the ground with collaboration with the Maryland Energy Administration. So through the federal formula process, Maryland was allocated about $63 million under NEVI to invest again in publicly available charging infrastructure along our alternative fuel corridors and in our communities. So it's important to note that we must fully build out these corridors, which are displayed in blue on the map to your right, before we can begin to invest in community charging. So what we mean by fully built out is that there needs to be at least 2 DC fast charging sites or level 3 charging sites, which Natalie covered the basics of earlier, that meet federal requirements on every corridor, including being located conveniently within at least 1 driving mile from the corridor, being able to simultaneously charge 4 vehicles, and also maintaining 97% or better uptime to ensure that drivers can rely on these chargers to be operating. These chargers must also be located no more than 50 miles between sites along each corridor. So essentially, these requirements ensure that there are convenient and reliable public chargers at predictable increments along our most traveled highways to enhance the consumer experience for drivers. And when we pivot to community charging investments following corridor build out, we will install level 2 charging with a particular lens on enhancing charging equity. So currently where the NEVI program stands, we have round 1 conditional awards announced for 23 sites for DC fast charging projects. And these sites are located at travel centers, shopping malls, and more. These locations are indicated by the red markers in the map on the screen, and they span 15 counties in our state, and they are anticipated to open to the public by fall 2025. We're also planning to issue a round 2 through NEVI to finish building out our corridors, so to add additional red dots along those blue lines you see later this year, and those projects we hope to have awarded by mid-2025. So that was a quick overview of some of the things we're working on in Maryland. Before I wrap up my segment, I want to share these resources with you all. And I think I can also drop the links in the chat. But that is it from me. I think I'm happy to answer some more questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amanda, for giving that insight. Now we're going to go into the last bit of the presentation. So I kind of want to get into, a thing called EVSE checklist. This is available on a website through the DOE. And they kind of provide some factors that are for improved performance. And so I just wanted to list a few of those things here so that you know that they are available, and there is a list of how to plan the charging out, find a good site for it, procurement, all of that stuff. It is available to you. So Factors for improved performance would be consideration the location of these EVSE units, review the climate in the area, catalog types and sizes of EVs that will be using the specific EVSE, estimate expected demand for EV charging. Certain condos and certain communities, they may have a higher demand because a lot of that community may have already adopted and purchased EVs. And then review availability of grid power, solar, and battery capacity, because that's always an option as well. So now I'm going to go into safety. We always want to talk anything we are talking about. Talk about safety in terms of charging. It is safe and is easy. So a few things to talk about that. Before buying an EV, you want to have a qualified electrician install the new dedicated circuit for your EV charging device. Like I mentioned earlier, some older homes may need to be upgraded in terms of the panel or the transformer. Um, so that's always something that you need to gauge with your installer when you're looking to have that charger installed. And then level 2 charging devices, definitely want those. They're going to be the most optimal type of way that you can charge your EV at this moment. It's definitely the preferred charging method. And then when you have your EV and you have your charger installed, just a few things on the right, kind of, what you should really be careful. You want to follow the manufacturer's guidelines when charging your vehicle. You want to maintain the components of your charging system according to the manufacturer's guidance. You want to make sure that you're looking for excessive wear because that could indicate a potential shock hazard. You never want to use any type of EV charger with obvious signs of damage. And then you also want to install sometimes a residential current device with the charging unit. It will turn off the power if a fault is detected and help prevent a fire. So charging an EV is safe when done with certified equipment. By following these tips, you can definitely lower your risk of having an associated fire or an electric shock injury. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of go into finding a public station. I talked about this earlier, that there is a way that you can use this tool called the Alternative Fuel Data Center. Um, and you can go to this link, and we'll make sure we put these links in the chat for you all. So this is if you're trying to find a station along your route, and you want to make sure you're finding maybe a level 2 or level 3. So this is a way to do it. So this screenshot you see up on the screen, it's showing first you want to make sure that you are putting what type of charger you want. So you see here it says level 2 DC fast. That's most likely what you're going to want to look for. The type of connector or charging port that your car needs. I have selected all, as you can see right here, the connectors. Usually it depends on the vehicle, but most likely it's good to have all those options selected so you're not limited when you actually do get a charging station. And then your desired location. So that could be maybe Baltimore, Maryland, could be maybe a place in Garrett County or Allegheny County, anywhere across the state. And then outside of the state, this also is good for anywhere you would like to go. So you'd put in maybe the zip code or the city, and then it will give you a route showing all those charging stations along the way. So that's a really useful feature I recommend providing to you all and using. And there also are apps from the charging station providers. An example of this, I believe ChargePoint, they can actually have an app and they can tell you where the charging stations are. And the most important thing is if those chargers are available or occupied. The worst thing is getting to a charging station and then you're not able to use it because you see that they're full. So that's a great feature that they have as well. So the last part is going to be speaking about state programs, tax incentives, and other resources, which I know is a hot topic, which is really important and crucial to people who are buying their EV and then their EV charger. So let's get into that. Okay, so this is showing all the different kinds of incentives for EVs and EVSEs that you may buy. There is the federal income tax credit that's up to $7,500 for the purchase of a qualifying EV or plug-in hybrid. The Maryland excise tax credit of $3,000. That is for qualifying zero-emission plug-in electric or fuel cell electric vehicles. The Maryland, and I'd like to point out the Maryland excise tax credit that is administered through MDOT or NVA, the Motor Vehicle Administration. So just to kind of make sure that clarify which agency that is through. And then we also, Maryland Energy Administration, we offer a rebate of 50% of the cost of the electric vehicle charging equipment and installation. And it is up to $700 for individuals and $5,000 for businesses. So to get a little bit in about the EVSE rebate program, whatever the cost might be, maybe your charger is $450 and then your installation is $1,000. Whatever that cost together is half of that. If it is $700 or less, that's what we will give you. So that's a great option if you have a charger installed at your home and your commercial business. We have that rebate for you all as well. And then going next into the federal EVSE credit, this one is up to 30% or $1,000 for the charging station equipment. So let's see. Plug-in vehicles qualify to access the HOV lanes. So regardless of the number of passengers that you have, MBA will issue a permit that you'll have displayed in your car for access, which is a really great thing. I see a lot of Teslas and a lot of other types of EVs utilizing this. And then to get into the utility aspect, because that's always an aspect, I think people may not realize that there are incentives out there. Pepco and Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, they do offer customers who own a plug-in vehicle the option for time of use charging rates. So this means that the program will offer a reduced rate, electric rate during off-peak hours to save EV drivers even more. And then so I have some of these utilities. They may offer rebate programs for the purchase of electric vehicle charging equipment. So a few examples of that is the Potomac Edison EV-driven program, Pepco's charger rebate, BGE's charger rebate, and then Delmarva charger rebate. So wherever you are in the state, there is going to hopefully be an option for you that you can utilize for your EV charger. So let's see. Okay, and so just to kind of touch on a successful EVSE project that we've seen here at MEA and we've gone to and been supportive of is one in Annapolis. So Annapolis, they unveiled a new EV charging station. It is the first federally funded DC rapid charger. It is capable of charging electric vehicles up to 150 kilowatts. The charger is located in the service parking lot behind the Visit Annapolis in Anne Arundel headquarters. So check that out sometime. That is definitely an option. And so this new charging station is part of BGE's, once again, I mentioned the EV Smart program, and it is aimed at promoting electric vehicle adoption in the city. So just a wonderful, successful project you can see. So in terms of next steps, connect with us for a free one-on-one advising on all things EV or EVSE. Contact your local government for policies. Contact your utility. Once again, look at those programs that your utilities have available to you for your charger or your EV itself. Review vehicles and infrastructure needs. Review local, state, and federal incentives. There's so much out there that could be right for you and suitable for what you might need at that time. So here we go. Questions. We can go into those now. I see some people have asked questions in the chat, but if anyone would like to come off and I'll mute, we are happy to take those questions for you now and give you any answers you might need.
And just so I'm mentioning some of the really good questions that were in the chat. And I did try and answer them, but maybe some of us are on the phone call, so we'll try and get some of these notes out. Can you please discuss EV tax incentives and rebates? So the very first EV 101 webinar, we actually did have the IRS come in and give a lot of information. I did put their contact information at the bottom of the chat here, but we can send that out via email as well. And if you have questions on EV tax credits or the charging station tax credits, do contact Christopher Green, and we'll send that after the call. Amanda, this might actually be more for you, and I think you mentioned it already into the chat. The NEVI funds awarded to companies like ChargePoint. Is there any protection for consumers? And it looks like you did put some additional information. Any clarifying things on that, Amanda?
Um, Nope, not really. So again, just to reiterate what I put in the chat is that, well, one, yes, we do anticipate most of our funds going to private companies. This is what the federal government also expects when they rolled out their NEVI program as well. And one of these requirements is that these chargers have to be operated and maintained for at least 5 years. And one of the evaluation factors we consider when selecting awards and evaluating the proposals we receive is their plan to ensure reasonable pricing. Yeah.
Yes, and so then I see the next one we had was from Jim. Where can we find a reasonable electrician to install at home? They all seem to price gouge. So, Jim, I would highly encourage you to reach out to us. We can have a little one-on-one session with you and talk about what we've seen in our experience, and hopefully get you in touch with a good one that will help you get that charger installed. So please reach out. We're here for you. Thank you for asking that question. That's a very good point. Um, I think it looks like we had a question about reporting broken chargers. And I believe it looks like that one might have been answered. We should be good to go. And then, yep, so if we spend $700 on the charger, we get half back. That is correct. Exactly. And I see Deb provided answer for Jim, which is great. And then in terms of HOV lanes, yes. So let's see. Yes, there is an option for HOV lanes in Maryland. You do have that option to utilize that. Let's see. Melanie, Blue Whale EV is located in Hanover. Okay, thank you for giving that. Let's see. Okay, so I see a question here that says, this is a really good one. In order to get the rebate for the home charger, do you have to use a certain contractor or electrician? No, you do not. We do not have a list of electricians or contractors that we say you must use. You can find whichever one is reasonable for you and suits your budget and your needs, and we will accept that. So thank you for asking that question. And then I see again, let's see. What are the EV chargers that get a rebate? Is there a list of models and brand name? So we do not have a specific list out there right now for required, which models or makes or anything like that. But I can tell you that we mostly see a lot of ChargePoint, Juicebox, we see Wallbox, we see the Teslas, we see the NLX ones. We see a lot of different kinds, so we will accept them all. We don't have any restrictions on if it's Energy Star. That's nice, it's a good bonus, but not a requirement. So whichever one suits you and your needs, we will take. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. How do we know funding is still available for the $700? Okay, so this one, Deb, yes, I see you're asking about the excuse me, the MEA EVSC rebate program. So fiscal 25 should be opening up very soon. And I always encourage anyone to apply, even if you think the funding might be out soon or anything. I highly encourage you to apply because once you do have the charger installed, you have to apply to us within 6 months of it being installed. So if you wait, you potentially risk being outside of that window. So, whenever you have it installed, apply immediately. You might be put on a wait list, but at least you have applied and we see that you did do it within the 6 months of it being installed. So great question, Deb. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Let's see. The EVgo Level 2 charger doesn't fit. Interesting. Thank you for that insight. That's good to know. There might be another adapter that would work with that. That's good to know. Thank you, though. Let's see. There are plans to help Calvert, St. Mary's, and Charles counties and more with level 3 chargers. Okay. Thank you for providing that. Definitely. We are always working with different counties. Yes. So please, like my colleague Pratiksha says, there is interest. Please contact us, please, and we will reach out to those counties and you. Do you have to get a permit for level 2 charger install your house? So no. So for the EVSE rebate program, we do not require permits or inspections. That honestly just depends on your county or your locally where you are. We see a mix. I would say the counties that we've seen that have, in the installation, they do require the permit and installation inspection has been Montgomery, Baltimore, all those PG County. So yeah, but that's the nice thing is that that's included in your installation. We don't require it. Your county might, but we don't require it. It is a little extra cost, like 200, $300. Once again, that's through your installer, not through us. Let's see. Where is the funding for the excise tax reimbursement? So like I said, the Maryland excise tax credit for your EV, not the EVSE, that is run through MDOT and MVA. Their fiscal 25 program is open. I know that they are open and they're ready. So you should be able to apply to them. So yes, Michael, thank you for adding that. The program is theoretically closed. That is because we ran out of funding for 24, but we will be reopening for fiscal 25. And even though it's closed, still apply because, like I said, you have to apply within 6 months of it being installed. So that's what I spread the word. Even if you see we're closed, just apply. We'll put you on the wait list and we will review it when we get to that time of the month for whatever month you apply in. So let's see. Yes, please use the transportation.mea@maryland.gov email to ask for information. Let's see. If I've already purchased an EV, can I get reimbursed if I buy another? That would be an MBA, MDOT type question, because we focus on the EV charger rebate program. But like I said, please send any of your questions to the transportation.mea email, and we can route you to, the proper channels and get that information for you. So yeah, just any other questions? We still got about 12 minutes, so please, put them in the chat, and we're here for you. So please take this time to ask any questions. Yes, and then also thank you, Pratiksha, my colleague. If you have any specific questions about the EVSE program through MEA, we put that email in the chat as well. So that's always something that you can reach out to as well, specifically for that EVSE program. And once again, this is recorded, so we will be putting this chat up on our website, so you can always come back onto this and watch through it again if you have any other questions that you missed now or thought of later. We have that option for you. So yeah, good question. Everything's by email. That's just easier for us internally. It just makes things a little bit easier to track things as well. We share emails, so we can always see that through proper channels. Can you elaborate more about the documentation aspect? Are you looking to see, what is needed to apply for the EVSE rebate program? Because if that's the case, I can definitely talk about that, Jubin, if you would like. So for the EVSE rebate program, we require the application form, which will be fiscal 25 when that's launched, hopefully very soon within the next week or two. Then we require the EV charger receipt that you purchased, maybe through Amazon or anything like that. So the EV charger receipt is very important. It must have your name, your address, and the date it was purchased. And then we look for the installation receipt invoice. And we look for your name, your address, the date, and we look that the address matches the application form, because we want to see that it actually was installed at the address where you reside. And then lastly, we look for the photo of not only the EV charger, but also the EV charger plugged into the EV itself, just so we can see that it's being used and it's being utilized in its proper form. And then lastly, we also require the W-9 form. And in the chat, we can send the list of what I just talked about what is going on for that. So let's see. So let's see. Yeah, so the application form, yeah, so that has kind of just generic information, your name, number, your address, and then specifically the type of make and model of the EV charger, the level. Most likely it's going to be a level 2. And then make sure you sign at the bottom. That's very important. Put your social, and anything else we can always reach out to you for. So I'm seeing why is the W-9? Yes, so the W-9 is just something that we ask up front because once we've reviewed your application, deemed it eligible, then sometimes our finance department will request a W-9 to make sure things match from the application and the W-9. So it's just something we ask up front because it might be something that is needed later on in the process. Let's see. So, okay, in terms of, looks like that would be government contractors, government building. So we have a residential side of the EVSE rebate program and then the commercial side. So I'm inclined to say that they would apply through the commercial application form, and it is very different from the residential side. So that Jubin, that's what they would apply for, and through and they once again it's 5,000 for the business side per charger, and you can get up to 30 chargers. And there is a cap of $125,000 for each entity. So if let's say there's a company, they apply and they reach that 125,000 mark, 5,000 per charger, then that is the cap, and they would have to wait until the next fiscal year to get more funding again. Let's see. So Deb, did you say earlier that another webinar covered? Yes, so there is another webinar. Yep, and Prateeksha put the link in there, Deb. You can access that presentation there. We recorded it. Yeah, we recorded it, and then the slides are right there as well. And we can send that as well to you all after this as well, with this presentation as well. You can definitely do that. Oh, okay, great. So, like I said, if you have any questions that you think of after this, please reach out to the transportation.mea email, and we will get back to you and provide any assistance you can. Thank you so much for being here and sitting through this presentation. We really appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you all. Have a great rest of your day and have a lovely rest of your week.